my name is Miranda, and today I'm here to review Lore by Alexandra Bracken. This book came out at the start of the year, and I was so excited to read it. First of all, I love Greek mythology books, but I don't read a lot of them. This is the weird thing. Like, you'd think I read more, but like Percy Jackson is mainly my main outlet, but I know a lot about the myths and stuff like that. So I was super excited to read a YA mythology book, just because I feel like there isn't too many of those, so it didn't feel like it was like an oversaturated market like sometimes the YA retellings do, with the fairy tale tellings, especially like Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, like how people just tell those a dime a dozen. So this really felt really different and really unique. And I mean, look at the cover, is so gorgeous, and I feel like just draws you in. And what I really like is Alexandra Bracken. She is such an interesting author because I feel like all her books are so different, but they're generally good. Like, I will be the first to admit I did not like the Darkest Mind series. I liked her writing, I just didn't like the characters in the story. But you look at that, it's very much like a kind of X-Men, like future dystopian kids with powers. Then her next series, Passenger, is absolutely amazing. It's about time traveling, it's about a violinist, like it's just so beautifully crafted, and I could not recommend it more, and I loved it. And then this is the next one. I know she has one in the middle that I haven't read, a middle grade series, but this is the next Alexandra Bracken one I read, and again, so well done. And yet what astounds me is I feel like you can't read from book to book and be like, oh, this is an Alexandra Bracken book. Like, the way she can change her writing to craft it and fit into the story and the genre she's making is so amazing to me. Like, that is the talent of a writer, I think. When I think like it's also impressive when you can read something and be like, oh, this is blah blah blah. Like, you could just give them a passage and they'll be like, this is that person, like, obviously. But there's something even more impressive to me about being able to just shape yourself into any genre you want, because I feel like truly the limits for what she could create are endless. Like, I don't know what her next book will be. I have no idea. And I think there's something really exciting about that. So Lore, like I said, is a Greek mythology book. It's not a retelling per se, but its own take on it. Everything's pretty much the same as we're used to, but there is and I'm terrible at pronouncing words, so let's just say a hunt going on every 7 years where the original gods betrayed Zeus, and as punishment, every 7 years for the last like centuries, they have been banished to Earth for a week's time, where they are mortal. Like, they can still use some of their powers, but their body's mortal, and basically there are families of hunters that work to track them down, and if they kill them, they gain the god's power and become like the new god and get the powers and stuff. So our main character, Lore, her family is basically hunted to extinction. She's the last remaining one of her line, and her family was killed at the start of the last hunt, so she left that world behind and is trying to just make it on her own and avoid all that stuff. And now the next hunt is coming up after the last one, and she's pulled back in when Athena shows up on her doorstep. Athena, who's one of the last surviving original gods. Everyone else pretty much has been killed aside from 2 other ones, I think, at that point. It's so interesting because I feel like Lore could easily have been like that strong female character that like is just all about like, I want to fight and I want to like just whatever, I'm strong, and like no emotion. And what she did with Lore is so interesting because she really encapsulated like this person who believed in the idea of what she grew up in, believed in the hunt, believed in the fact of like glory before anything else, and the way she has changed herself into someone who just wants a normal life and sees it more as like a cult and as something that you're trapped into instead of like what this honor thing that she thought it was. It's just so amazing to see that. For her, it was being in the hunt meant being trapped and never being free, because, and I have to agree with this because I thought this too, even if you win the hunt, say, right, like you, after that week, you kill a god and you become a god, for the rest of your life, you are now hunted because someone wants your power. And like, even being at the top of this thing, winning a god's power, you're still at the mercy of other people, because it's only like, you're always looking over your shoulder and there's no freedom in that. So at the start of this hunt, the other weird thing that happens is her best friend from when she was a kid, who she thought died 7 years ago, comes back as a god. He now somehow has the god powers, but he doesn't remember how he got them. And he also now has heard of this addition to a poem that talks about ending the hunt for all, like for like over. And that becomes a mission to try and figure out how they can end this once and for all, and then also take down Wraith, who is the, I always call him Wraith, it's Wrath. Take down Wrath, who is the bad guy and is trying to kill all the other gods to get their power and become the only final god. So there's a lot of puzzle pieces moving, and it's just amazing, I think, how well they are moved without it feeling overwhelming. It's all from Laura's point of view, but you never feel like, I feel like you're always on her side, you know? Like, you get where her choices are, you get where she gets frustrated, where she gets angry. Her big thing is she gets angry a lot, and throughout the novel she has to work on controlling that rage, because she kind of comes to realize that anger itself is not a positive or negative thing. What happens with anger that makes it bad is when you hang on to it and when you let it consume you, because anger can drive you to a certain point. Anger can make you work harder. Anger can make you work stronger and fuel you to do something, but it's when it becomes your only motivating factor and you let it just become, like she even says, like, just poison yourself with it. That's when it becomes an issue, and that's kind of what she has to work on. There are so many great quotes in this one, but there's one that I love that she mentions, something about how you're never alone if you have people that love you, because they'll always do whatever they can to protect you and look out for you. I do have to say what I liked from the beginning is even when she was on her own at the start, she did have this other friend, Miles, who was just like a human, not involved in the world at all, just someone she met after she had escaped the hunt. And I feel like I liked her having that best friend because she was so, obviously she didn't tell him about the hunt, but she was so open and honest with him and like genuinely wanted to be his friend. Whereas I feel like in some other books or other instances, like it would have been like she pushed him away, or like he was always like trying to be her friend and she was just like, oh, and like he wore her down. Like I liked it because it showed why she wanted to get out of the hunt. She wanted to be social, she wanted to have friends. I feel like Laura was, she was dynamic. She wasn't what you expected, you know? She had thoughts and she had feelings and she loved, and she was a fighter but didn't want to be, you know? Like she was kind of put into that life and she wants to leave fighting behind, and I think that's something really nice to see and different to see. And I think Castor was a big driving force behind that, because he, even though he does have like these god powers now, is very much like he doesn't want to hurt people. His powers, since he gets Apollo's powers, are based in healing, and he is kind of someone that's always like, you know, don't let this hunt overtake you, don't like be as ruthless as them, like be better than them. And I think it was also really nice because I've said before, I like when the love interests are kind of like, instead of like, he easily could have been a dick, he could have been that cocky, sarcastic, smirky dick that we're all used to if you read any book after Twilight. And I feel like making him someone that was more empathetic and also wanted to choose to do the right thing instead of the easy thing, you know, even when he had these super hard powers that would destroy anything pretty much. I think that was really great. It kind of harkens to that idea of, you know, like Laura is so harsh and sharp, and there's a part of her that's so willing to fight that if she was with a love interest like that, it would make her worse. So to have someone who can fight but also chooses to be good, to love, and to be empathetic and draws that out of her, it brings it to back, like it helps her center herself, and I really, really like that. There are two big plot twists that I have to discuss because they were just balls to the walls. Like I was shocked. So earmuffs for the rest of the video if you have not seen it. I'll put my hand back up and like do a little wave when the spoilers are done. But the first spoiler was you find out that Gil, the man who Laura had been living with for the last 7 years and who she thought was just like a random ass dude, was actually Hermes in disguise. So I did not see this coming at all. I knew there was going to be something up with Gil because I thought it was just too coincidental that like this guy that meant so much to her was just dead and there was never going to be anything else we learned about him. But I think that was a very interesting twist because it showed, I think, the idea that not all the gods were so brutal and heartless to mortals. Like he truly did feel bad for the part he played and what happened to her family. And then the one that really, really shocked me was the Athena betrayal. I knew she was going to be bad. I could tell she was going to be bad just based on how she would fight and how conveniently whenever they met an ally, she would knock them out or kill them before they could say anything. And I also think there was a tendency to describe with like the other gods specifically how their powers, they could manipulate you to feel a certain way. So like wrath could make you feel like angry. So obviously I was like, okay, so every time Laura's like, I must kill this, like I have to do this, I'm like, that's clearly Athena. She is, I think people remember her as the goddess of wisdom, but people forget also that she's also a goddess of war. She's just like strategy more than that. So anytime she was like, I have to do this, I'm like, okay, that's obviously Athena's influence. And Laura even realized it herself, saying like how she was trying to isolate her and break her away from the people that would pull her back from the brink of being like, you're going too far. So I knew something was up with Athena. I thought she was just going to be working with Wrath. I didn't think that she would actually be the one that killed Laura's family. So that was just so shocking. And I feel like as much as they tried to, they redeemed her in, I feel like the only way you could, right? Like she couldn't live. You couldn't really make amends with that because she took something from Laura that could never ever be given back. So in her sacrificing her life for Laura, I feel like is really the only way that you could be like, it's not okay, but at least you kind of feel like she's seen what she's become and the errors of her ways and that this can't continue. Like this, what you wanted originally out of this hunt and to get back whatever you lost, like it's not worth destroying all these innocent people. And I think I think there is a part of her that cared for Lore at the end of it, but I do think again that there's no redeeming that, so I feel like the way that they handled it was very good. But yeah, I was totally shocked, and it was such a like little thing. Like they mentioned at the beginning that like she's like, I know who really killed your family, and Laura was just like, it doesn't matter, like Wrath ordered the hit, like I don't care who the hand was, I'm more concerned who the order came from. And it was just like brushed aside because then it was always focused on Wrath, we're killing Wrath, to the point where you forgot Wrath isn't like I forgot Wrath wasn't actually the one that killed her parents and her family, it was someone else. So then to find that out, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like it was just so good. So I really loved it. I think Castor and Laura's love story was so cute too, like the friends to lovers, and how it was just subtle enough that, you know, it didn't overtake the story or feel like, because there's obviously like a lot of pressure and like we only have 7 days to solve this thing before everything goes kaput. So it's obviously like it didn't take away of like them just like randomly like hooking up or something like that, but like the moments of high intensity or like the quiet moments when they were able to bond, I think was really, really sweet, and I really liked that. And then also Van and Miles was so freaking cute, guys. My friend had actually read it right before me, so we were talking the other day and I was like, all right, just answer me this. She's like, what? And I was like, Van and Miles, is that a thing or am I reading too much into it? And she's like, oh no, it's a thing. And it was just so cute to see it play out and everything like that. So I really love it. I could not recommend it enough. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. I think the most jarring thing for me was just seeing the gods in a different light from like the Percy Jackson stuff, because obviously like they're dinguses and kind of mean in the Percy Jackson series, but like this, they're brutal. Like they don't care about anything or anyone. This book is very violent. Like I would put it up there with like Hunger Games. I can't wait to see what she writes next. This is a standalone, which I actually do enjoy because I feel like they could have dragged it out more. So anyway, I really, really loved it. It's definitely a new favorite of mine. There's so many good quotes in it that I love. My favorite obviously is Castor has a line where he's like, I was born knowing how to do 3 things: dream, breathe, and love you, Lore. And I was just like, it's so, so cute. So if you have read this book or plan on reading it, please feel free to leave your thoughts about it down in the comments. Also make sure this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!